let me start with the tangent. So I do want to preface that I don't usually write a script for these. So I usually go off the dome on what I think and what I feel about it and such and such. I prefer to not make a script because I feel like it's less raw, less direct, less natural. Not per se less natural, but it feels worked, it feels perfected. And I think that even perfected, I would prefer to hear it, but I just prefer to have this raw feel and to train myself so that it gets easier to just get into that zone that I feel like I used to be in. So simply put, let's just get back into the chapter. Sorry for the tangent. You just give me some time. It's gonna back. It's gonna get back to fire shit. Sorry for the tangent. Because I had to make the tangent because this chapter was just too raw and I couldn't dodge it. Talking about this chapter is a bit crazy because we left off on a pretty calm but pretty deep chapter on the last one where they started to play a game. Now we're really getting into the nitty gritty of it. And like I kind of foresaw but didn't really talk about, the game isn't so much about the game, but the game is so much more about the information that is being shared, that is being talked about. And they get into it. But before we talk about that, I just want to talk about how the characters are acting. And it's just such a beautiful way that they act, and you get just a greater idea of who they are. For example, Morena, who has normally all the power in this situation, is playful and has this shyish attitude towards Bergson, while Bergson is acting a bit cold and confident, even though she is the hostage. The whole roles are inversed and they just having fun with the whole thing. And it's just so interesting. Going from there, they just have these playful interactions that I really like. And I think we could only get them if we get chapters for themselves so they can talk. But we get into the nitty gritty, and Bergson picks up a card that is the target card, which we want to know more about Morena's goals. Now, she makes a brief explanation that we already knew about, and Bergson is not satisfied, like we are not satisfied. We get a bit deeper as Morena just simply says, "Oh, so you want to know more about why I'm doing this?" So she starts to tell her story, and a story it is, because she is not Morena Prudo. She is not even Morena Prudo. She's talking about Morena Prudo being dead and in her tomb, because Bergson is what they would call, when I say they, I'm talking about the Kakin family or Kakin Ralph family. Meat. You heard me. She is called Meat. They call her Meat, and you don't want to know why they call her Meat, right? So the real Morena Prudo, quote unquote, is dead and is in the place of Bergson. Now Bergson is taking her place. Bergson starts to talk about a phenomenon called a festival, a certain festival that the Kakin family would hold. From there, Morena explains that she's one of the orphans of the festival, and Bergson understands directly what that might imply from the look on her. And what it implies is just as horrible as you might imagine, if not even more. So the festival is held randomly every once in a couple of years in a random village in Kakin. So the royals go there and they do pretty much whatever they want. Now in there, you understand what might be happening down there. Some crazy shit, some nasty shit, and they really get into it. They do some shit. And they cannot be opposed during that period. Not that they can be opposed otherwise, but precisely during that period, it gets new. What do you even call it? It gets feudal. It gets feudal shit. It gets to feudal shit, and they just can kill you for A or B. In those conditions, Morena's mother was serving, quote unquote, those royals, and she couldn't sleep. She couldn't do anything else. And 2 years after Morena's birth, she died. Morena was then, from birth, slashed up on the face as the fake royals, meaning the royals that are not approved by the kingdom, were slashed up just as Morena. But then they were categorized, and this is where the name Meat was applied to Morena and the rest, and the others were applied to unaccounted royal family members. So we understand that as Meat, Morena has obligations, quote unquote, or things to do, or things to be made to do. Nasty shit. And she goes through those obligations for 20 years. Yeah. So we get to really understand what Morena or who Morena is. And if you didn't switch switch sides before, the switch is being made as I speak, probably. And that's how it is. Morena really is pretty much a martyr. And she just explains it in such a light, as if it's not like some fucked up shit way, and just keeps explaining. And she lets know that that's what happened. And throughout those years, that's how she started to learn that she had some ability and that she's a specialist, and how she got this ability. And she knows that those are not ancient practices because she's, I don't know, 28, 23 now. Those are practices that are still happening as recent as about 2 years ago or a year ago. Since she saw a new batch arrive, since she's 98, she saw a batch that was 20 arrive recently. So she understands that it's not something that's so rare. Going from there, we switch up to Bergson, which says, "Oh, that sounds like a sad story," and we keep on going. We just keep it rolling, even though she just told one of the most fucked up stories out there. We let it roll, and I mean, that story just lets us know who the royal family really is, or what they really are about. I mean, think about it. We saw the Nen beast of the king, so we get an idea of what he is like. If that gets you an idea, imagine what they were doing with meat and what they were doing with Nisen Mono. Anyway, so Morena goes into entering the second card. Has Bergson has pulled out one of her card, which was the Joker. That's the first card she pulled. Going from Joker, she chose ability. And when she starts to explain ability, she explains that it's Nen. Bergson lets her know that she knows a bit about Nen, but not that much. And they get into the nitty gritty. She lets her know that pretty much because you're a specialist, we want you in our team because we might have one ability we want to push on you so that you can be useful to us. We also get this better view of Bergson, as she explains that ever since birth she was being propagated to, like she was being thrown propaganda at, and she has looked at it and just wasn't finding her ways in it, and she was feeling some sort of fear of the future or anxiety of the future, not knowing what might happen in case of war. She's just willing or hoping that it all end in a peaceful way for her future, that her future is just that peaceful. She is, in fact, just looking for peace in any way or form that she can find it. So even in her ranking into the royal family, she is looking for that peace. We understand that, honestly, she does not want to be part of Morena's crew, even though she doesn't like the royal family that much. And she kinda has a bit of empathy towards Morena, and she's not trying to kill people. Going from there, the explanation of Nan gets clear, and the fact that she's a specialist makes her curious about what she might have as ability later. But Morena explains that that would be more in the realms of the yes and no questions with the question marks. But she also lets her know that the enhancer that found you, which, interesting enough, Dogman is actually a bit popular amongst the crowd, and you see people cheering for him. Dogman, Dogman, the dog, do the dog pose, crazy shit like that. So he's actually popular, but he's taking on this task, and he found Crollo in the crowd. But Crollo had experience, and we get a bit of stats about Nen abilities and how specialists are pretty rare, to the point where it might be 1 in 3,000 people, although it's a bit of a, it's not that clear, but it's an estimation. And so Morena concludes that, listen, from that number, you can assume that although we might need you, we might find somebody better, so you don't have maybe that much negotiating power. We do also get just a more specific understanding of what specialists do that I might have to get into later, but not on this video because it's getting a bit long. But as we go forward, Morena explains that if you want to know so much more about abilities and such, you might have to pick one of the yes or no cards with the question mark. And Boxen follows her on that, while she pulls out a yes card for her own deck. And everybody seems a bit down from that, because that means that if she wants to be ending up with a yes, she has to be making it of her own choice. It's no longer an option for her alone. It's no longer, well, an option for Morena to be winning it by having the yes. So the yes is out of question. Now in the end, she ends up with return card and a no card. And so Borgsen asks about, well, the no card. And when she asks about the no card, well, Morena explains that X and no are definitely not the same. I think you assumed, or at least you guessed that much. So I have to let you know that if you pick no in the end, although I've given you all this information, the end might not be as sweet. Borgsen already is assuming that she's gonna get killed. And I'm saying it might be worse than that, because in the previous video I explained why it might be worse. Because I really think that if she says no, she's still gonna be used for the trap. She's not gonna be able to control her own actions. Going forward, they still have a couple of discussions about everything. She wants to know how many Hailey members there are. She sort of throws out a trap question and guesses it from the reactions. And she want to make sure that the X card truly saves her. Now, the X card does get pulled out of her own deck, which leaves her, like I said before, with the return card, survival, and a no card. What she assumes is death. But in that last moment, almost as if this chapter couldn't have any more revelations, we get an announcement that declares in the highest order that martial law has been applied. And it's not a drill. I repeat, it's not a drill. Martial law that we have been talking about for chapters now has been declared. So crazy shit is about to go down, if it's not going down already. And I think that would be a great place to stop, because the video is getting long and I just had to make a surface level assessment of the chapter, but I still had to get a bit of the facts in, or I wouldn't feel right. Simply put, a nice chapter truly shines when it comes to character acting, or more character interaction, or the interaction of the characters. That's really where it truly shines. And we also get some backstories that truly make these characters so much more relatable, or just we like them so much more because of that, because we understand Morena so much more. It doesn't feel like empty rage, and that's what makes it so important. Now I can see the Hailey the same because of that, and I can already see what might have been justifying the whole decisions about maybe the Justice Bureau being on their side, or how people like Yokotani, who's a whole lawyer, want to be on his side, how a wrestler that is popular like Dogman want to be on her side. Things like that. It feels, it's like showing its true face, and we are truly getting to understand that Morena isn't so much justified by being a royal family not acknowledged. She was something else entirely that was not acknowledged. This is just that crazy. Yeah, so let me stop it there. Great chapter. Read it if you haven't. Why would you check this video if you haven't read it? Thank you for the watch. Have a good day. Hope to see you again. Thanks.